Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for links to some great online retailers. There's also individual links for knives that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Serge Panchenko production slip joint. Very cool. This knife comes in a few configurations, and I will link it right down below. You can absolutely pick it up right now. This knife was sent to me by the good, the great, the Nick Shabazz. Thank you very much, Nick, for sending this. He and I were talking, and he said, hey, do you want to take a look at this? And I looked at it, and I'm really picky with slip joints. I'm not a traditional knife guy. You don't generally see that type of stuff on my channel, but this is a modern traditional. I think that kind of, explains itself, self-explanatory, right? But traditional fulling knife with modern elements. And this particular one is all titanium, which is right up my alley, and it's got a very, very simple aesthetic, which is definitely something I like. And so, yeah, I said, yes, please, I'd like to take a look at that. I think that's really cool. Serge obviously makes custom knives. This is a production version, so it's much less expensive than, custom variants of this or custom knives from Serge. So that's cool. There was a lot here that I really liked. When I say I'm picky, I mean, like, when it comes to slip joint knives, I like some Victorinox knives, I like some Great Eastern Color knives, but it's pretty limited. So the fact that this has modern elements and is using, modern super steel, that's really the reason I said, yeah, I'll take a look at that. Thank you so much to my generous patrons for supporting me right now. If you are enjoying the daily knife content on this channel and you'd like to support me as well, there is, of course, a link right down in the description. You can get your hands on some cool stickers and other benefits. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. All right, let's go ahead and get a measurement of this guy. So overall length of the Serge Panchenko production slip joint coming in at 6 1/4, maybe just a little bit longer than that. And then your blade length is coming in at 2.75. Cutting edge is coming in at 2.5. So this is cool because it makes it legal in a whole bunch of different places, all over the place. I mean, obviously, in some parts of the world, this is still not going to be legal. But the fact that it is a non-locking blade with a blade length of, well under 3 inches, it just makes it something that people can carry. This is something that I would really enjoy taking with me on a long road trip as I pass over state lines, because for the most part, it's really just not something that I'm gonna, have to worry about too much. I think that's a big draw to something like this. Somebody who is a knife enthusiast and does appreciate, maybe, well, a modern knife enthusiast and appreciates modern details, right? But if you're traveling, right, we've all been there, right? You're limited on what you can take with you. So this is something that's really cool and kind of fits into that weird little spot that we all think about when we're traveling, right? So that's kind of neat. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons here up against the Ontario Rat Model 1. Rat 1 coming in at 8.6 inches overall. So you can see here, this is not a big knife. This is a small knife, absolutely. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? Spyderco PM2 is coming in at 8.3 inches overall. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue is coming in at 8 inches overall. How about up against the Spyderco Para 3? Spyderco Para 3 is coming in at 7 1/4 inches overall. I will point out here that the cutting edge, or the usable cutting edge, is very similar to the Spyderco Para 3, right? And that's because, the blade to handle ratio on that thing is kind of crazy. And last but not least, the Benchmade Mini Griptilian. Mini Griptilian coming in at 6.75 inches overall. Once again, usable cutting edge, very similar to the Benchmade Mini Griptilian. So I think a lot of people will find that interesting. How's the action on this guy? Well, this is a slip joint, right? So we judge the action completely different. When I look at a slip joint knife, I want, obviously, when it's locked out, I don't want any side-to-side play, and I want there to be a very solid snap into the open position, and this absolutely has it, right? This also has a mid-stop or half-stop that is very satisfying in solidity, I guess. Excuse me, I've handled some other expensive and inexpensive slip joints that are, they're all the way around, they're good, but this seems to be kind of a problem area with a lot of slip joints that are both modern and actually traditional. Is this area right here can be mushy. This guy, this has a solid snap into the closed position, a solid snap into the mid-stop or half-stop, and a solid snap into the open position. That is very satisfying in a completely and totally different way than what we, expect from, your modern knives with the fall shutty action, right? It's not like that. But it has that snap that I think people look for. And I'm not a professional when it comes to, slip joint knives, right? I'm not somebody who's really, really into those specifically. I guess would be able to, offer up more of a, just defining elements of what makes that so good, or which knives are the best examples of that. But for me, coming at this, from my perspective, that's what I look for, is snap, snap, snap. And it's nice, right? It's also nice because, with these knives that have these mid-stops or half-stops, right? Since it's a non-locking blade, you really have to be careful when you close it, right? So it's nice that it is so strong in that mid-stop position. It actually gives you a chance to, basically, if you're kind of not really paying attention, it gives you a chance to get your finger out of the way so you don't close. I've cut myself more on slip joint knives than anything else. The scars on my hands are mostly from slip joint knives, and so I appreciate that. I think that's really cool. This comes in a few different variants, by the way. There's G10 and titanium, and then they have this Warncliffe blade, and then they have what they call a Persian style blade, and then they have like a cleaver blade. From what I've seen, I don't know if the cleaver blade comes in titanium or not, but maybe it does. Maybe all three blades come in titanium, and I think they definitely do this acidy stonewash thing. And then they've got blue and maybe bronze. And then the G10 variants, I've seen orange and I've seen black, right? The titanium ones come in at 150. That's what you're seeing right here. And then your G10 variants come in at about 135. We're going to talk about price here in just a little bit. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check on this guy, get out my tools. As per usual, you can find my tools right down in the description. They are very inexpensive and very recommendable. It's looking like everything on this knife is going to be T6. T6 and T6. Yeah, we don't need to check it. Literally everything on this is T6. Here's what I like about this. This is a slip joint that you can take apart. A lot of traditional knives, you just can't take them apart. I appreciate that I can take this apart, and I appreciate that it's very simple in construction. Obviously, you have this, area back here where you've got this tension, right, and that's something that you have to mess with a little bit when you're putting it back together. But for the most part, this is something that's very friendly in terms of disassembly, right? There's minimal hardware. There's the 2 screws on the pocket clip. You've got both sides of the pivot, and then you've got a couple of screws back here. Pretty simple, right? And the fact that you can get into it just makes me happy. That's something that I really pointed out that I liked about the Benchmade Proper. It's largely a lot of the same type of thing here. You can get into it and clean it out. This does run on phosphor bronze washers. I'm going to get out my flashlight here real quick. You can get my flashlight down in the description as well. Can we see in there? Oh, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see. Can I move this around to where we can actually see? You can kind of, yeah. It does run on phosphor bronze washers, and it feels like it, right? The action's not gritty. It's nice and smooth. I should have talked about this in action. Everything feels great. It's very satisfying, absolutely. Let's go ahead and talk about carry profile. So thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. You can see here, this guy's very thin. It's very, very friendly dimensionally. And in terms of length and height, up against 2 knives that have awkward carry profiles that nobody ever complains about, the Spyderco PM2 and Para 3, yeah. This thing's a winner. It's a small knife, right? It's pretty much what you'd expect. Height and length, not going to be a problem to carry. There's not really a pocket that this isn't going to fit into as long as you have pockets. Weight on this guy. We're looking at titanium and not very much thickness on the blade stock. We're actually going to go ahead and measure that here real quick before I forget. I always seem to forget to do that. Blade stock thickness on the production slip joints coming in at 110 thousandths. Okay, so not very thick. Weight, we're looking at, I'm going to get steel back here on the, what do you call this slip joint, people? Do you call this, I want to call it the backspacer. It's the element that exists on slip joint knives. Amateur, okay, and then titanium and not very thick blade stock. No internal milling, not that it needs it, right? So anyways, the titanium one coming in at 2 ounces. I'm going to guess the G10 one probably comes in a 1/4 ounce less, right? Maybe half an ounce, probably not, probably a 1/4 ounce. In any case, whatever ratios you go by. Under the 4 ounce mark, you go by ounce and inch, right? You just kind of judge it by dimensions or whatever. There's really nothing to complain about here. This is an incredibly lightweight, low profile, sort of geometrically satisfying for the you know, for the basically people who want to maximize, you know, the utility of the object in any given scenario, the ratio between that and the weight and the dimensions of it. This is great, right? Just adding to that point about this being a really, really great travel knife for somebody that wants to carry something other. I always have to carry my Victorinox Cadet, which is fine, but it doesn't have that, you know, the cool factor, right? This has the cool factor, so that's really, really great. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the anatomy here. We have really just kind of a pill body, or not. Now I don't want to call it a rectangle. It's just a, you know, very plain, simple body shape, very simple aesthetic. And some people don't like that. I do. I find this very attractive. I like a monochromatic look, so this is definitely something that I'm interested in. All the corners are nicely knocked down. There's nothing that's sharp here. The tumbling looks great. You have the little logo back here. That's fine. Honestly, it looks good like this. I would have also just died for some sort of horizontal, you know, micro machine texturing on this. Does it need it? No. It just would have been really, really cool, and it would have kept that simple aesthetic, and it would have looked good with any anodizing, and it would offer, I guess, a little tiny bit of traction. It's just something that I would be, oh, it'd be neat if that was on there, but it doesn't really need it, right? So for people, you know, thinking maybe this was too simple, maybe they would appreciate that. I don't know. It's just me looking at this going, this is great. I'd like to have some texturing. I say that about pretty much anything with titanium, right? It's just me. The blade is awesome. This is definitely the exact setup that I would go with, right? Of all the blade shapes, different colorings, the one that Nick sent me, this is, if I was going to go for this, this is exactly what I would pick up. I love this blade shape for EDC. I found, honestly, for general EDC, I used to be, you know, like aesthetically, I appreciate my drop point blades, honestly. I mean, those are generally the blades that I go for just because I like how they look aesthetically. But for EDC, I kind of like these Wharncliffe style blades or sheep's foot, whatever, right? I like these because the nose tips down and it makes it a little bit better for cuts like this or cutting in a pack, which I find that I'm doing more than anything. So this is wonderful. I think, yeah, this is completely flat ground, and it comes down to a ridiculously thin edge, which is awesome. I mean, the fact that this is M390, and by the way, this is M390. M390 is just perfectly accentuated on this. A steel that's not tough, which is fine for a knife like this, because this isn't a knife you're going to be going out and beating on. Steel that has excellent edge retention and is going to obviously be emphasized. Cutting performance is going to be emphasized by the fact that the edge is super thin. And a blade that is stainless, right? Couple the fact that we've got titanium here. As a knife that, you know, you spill a drink on it or something, why don't you just wipe it off? You're going to be just fine, right? It's really not going to be a big deal. Corners up here, nicely knocked down, I think, thanks to the tumbling. Yeah, it's not getting my fingernails or anything like that, I don't think. Maybe in a couple areas right there, maybe just a little bit. No big deal, it's for the most part knocked down. I think the nail nick is in a fine spot, right? Honestly, I've found that I can just grab it and just sort of pinch it up. It doesn't really matter, right? You don't have to necessarily get it right on the nail nick. It's there if you want to use it, but truthfully, the amount of resistance, you know, when pulling it out it's just about perfect. It's easy to grab onto, despite there not being, other than the nail nick, right? It's not forcing you to use that. You can, and sometimes with these knives, the tension down here is just so ridiculous, and you got to dig your fingernail in, you pull on it, it shreds your fingernail, it peels it up. It just drives me crazy with some of these knives. Like, I just want to get it out and use it, right? I don't want to dick around with it. This knife doesn't do that. You just open it and use it, right? Whether you make the nail nick or you get the nail nick or not, it's great. That blade is just going to make short work of whatever task you are throwing at this, and it's fine. I appreciate that it just says Serge Knife Co. M390 and then 046, which I imagine is the number on the knife. I'm going to guess these are limited, right? And then there's nothing on the front, which is really great because you can enjoy the very simple aesthetic that he was going for with this. I just like this, right? Edge is nicely done. There's nothing wonky or anything right here. You've got this area, you know, your sharpening choil, right? I think I've heard some other people point this out. You got to be careful about how close your finger is when you are bringing this blade to the mid stop, right? If you're using it, right, and then you go to push down on it with like if you're trying to do it one-handed, don't do it like this. I would move your fingers out of the way, grab it like this, and push it down with your index finger. That way there's no fingers in here. They're going to catch that little tooth, right? That's generally where I cut myself, is right there on that knuckle or on this knuckle, right? And then go like this. So if you're going to do a one-handed close, seems obvious, right? Don't do it like this. You're going to catch your finger. Do it like this. Get it to the mid stop, push it down. Easy. I love that. That's great. Why am I yelling? Because I'm excited about it, I guess. Fit and finish all the way around is great. No ugly seams or anything like that. This is nice and flush, right? This area up here, it doesn't... I know that on a lot of slip joint knives, like this comes perfectly even right there, but they've got this area chamfered, and this area is chamfered so it meets up. So if you're looking at that and thinking, oh, I don't like that it doesn't meet up perfectly, I mean, it is even, right? The gap that's in here is even all the way across. It's not bent like up or down or anything. And then the gaps on either side of the blade are great. This doesn't bother me. As somebody who's not specifically into traditional knives, right, but looks for little fit and finish elements on modern locking blades, right? I look at this and it just doesn't, it's not something that bothers me at all. It looks great and there's no play backwards or left and right. Obviously it's not a locking blade, so it's going to move forward. It does take a decent amount of force to get it to move forward, and you can see that tension there is pushing the... I hate knives that just get like stuck and won't come back, right? It just doesn't give me a lot of confidence in the tension right there. So it does take quite a bit of force to get the blade to move forward, but obviously don't be using it like this and pushing down on it, right? Because you can't do this, not a locking blade. Hardware looks great. Wish it was T8, but it's not. I'm not going to really judge it too hard on this. Not a deal breaker. Pocket clip. Excellent. Very simple. Very functional. Has the continuous rise and the rounding at the end. This is great. It's not going to fight your pants. This carries not deep, not shallow. It's just fine. I don't have a problem with it. A lot of people, oh, I wish it was completely and totally deep carry. This is kind of right in the middle. That's about the amount of knife that's going to be sticking up out of your pocket. Some people, I guess, might have an... I just don't have an issue with it. The pocket clip is very simple, very functional. There's plenty of tension on it. Is the pocket clip titanium? Yeah, okay. Pocket clip's titanium. That's nice. It'll be really forgiving if you catch it on something. This side of the knife, same as the front. You cannot mount the pocket clip to the left-hand side, which is kind of a bummer. I mean, it's a slip joint, so it should be... you know, lefty friendly. We should have the mounting holes over here, right? Oh, that'd take away from the simple aesthetic or the clean aesthetic of the show side, right? Well, I mean, left-handed people are just left out here, right? I mean, this is a great, it's an ambidextrous knife, right? It should have ambidextrous positions for the pocket clip, right? Suppose you could just take the pocket clip off and carry it like you would a Victorinox Cadet, but I like the fact that this has a pocket clip. It makes me happy. I wish it was mountable on this side. Maybe they make left-handed versions of this. I don't know. I've never seen one, right? But it just seems like if they don't, it just seems like a missed opportunity. Whatever. Blade centering. Spot on this guy. Very, very cool. Like I said, no blade play in the directions you would expect it to not have blade play in. All the way around, I really like this. I don't have a lot of nitpicks. Be careful when you're closing it. Don't close it with your thumb, right? Pocket clip really should have had a mountable position on the other side. That's my biggest gripe with this, right? Where are these made? They're made in China. That's part of how they get the cost down. If this thing was made in the United States, it would definitely cost more, just the way that it is. But it costs substantially less than a custom, right? If this knife were handmade, or if it was a custom from Serge, it would cost a lot more money. So we're looking at titanium, we're looking at M390, we're looking at a premium build quality, right? Really awesome, really satisfying mid-stop or half-stop, really satisfying snap into the close position. This thing isn't moving, right? But it's still easy to pull the blade out. Really satisfying snap into the opening position. Great blade geometry. This particular shape is definitely, in my opinion, it's the best one. Really good. There's a lot of good here. This is an excellent knife, and the fact that you can carry it almost anywhere, right? Or at least from my perspective here in the United States. If you live outside the United States, I have no idea. You got to check, right? But here in the United States, you can carry this just about anywhere. As far as I know, that's cool. And you get to, it's got a pocket clip on it, and you get to feel good about having titanium and M390 in your pocket versus whatever Victorinox uses. And nothing against Victorinox. It's just, you know, I would much prefer to carry this, right? A lot of people are going to go, I want my Victorinox, it's got more tools on it. I really just, for the most part, need a blade. That's all I just care that I have a blade on my person. So if I was going to travel, I'd really appreciate this. But even if I wasn't traveling, even for people who just prefer knives like this, right? Slip joint style knives, and then they want some of the modern elements to appreciate, you're also going to like this, right? There's a lot of reasons why something like this would make sense in a person's life, right? This is a great, you know, gift to give somebody. I mean, there's the nicest thing about knives like this is that for the most part, they're not intimidating to non-knife people, and Anybody can figure them out. You don't have to be a knife nut to understand how this works. You can hand this to just about anybody and they're going to go, and then they're going to use it, right? That's great. I think that's awesome. Be careful, it's not a locking knife. I've always thought these were, you're more likely to get cut by a knife like this than a locking blade. I'm speaking from my own experience. I've cut myself more with stuff like this, right? But again, I appreciate, the strength of the tension that's in these 3 zones, right? To here and then moving it to here, it's very easy to close. This is an extremely recommendable knife. Whether you go with a titanium for 150 or you go with a G10 for 135, right? This is great. It's absolutely going to go on my recommended knives playlist. I urge you guys to check out the links down in the description if you want to check this out and the different variants that are available. I think you guys would really like this. All right, guys, that's going to be pretty much it for today's review. Thanks again, Mr. Nick Shabazz. Obviously, if you're not subscribed to Nick, then go check him out. I would guess that most of you are, but if you're not, go subscribe to Nick. He's excellent. Please follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.